our next session, which is going to be from Professor Chan here. He's going to talk about actually creating cohorts, right? Because you just learned about what is OHDSI, what is OMOP, our common data model, how to move your data into the model. Now, how do you use it, right? Because that's the most important thing to get a Lancet paper with Mark over there, is to actually utilize the data itself in a research paper, right? So Chan's gonna start and talk to you guys about how to create cohorts utilizing tools that we have. And thank you for preparing this whole symposium.
You need to focus on this on this class. And first of all, you need to connect to the add-ons. There is a URL here, and you can use the QR code here by using your laptop or cell phones.
Give them a minute. Yeah, give you guys a minute.
Please make sure to write it down on your website. You can take a picture if you cannot see this very clear. And if you have any problem, please raise your hands without any resistance.
用你的 laptop 会更好的，因为这个是一个工具，所以如果你想做这个队列的话，用你们的 laptop 会更好的，因为那个屏幕会更大嘛。有问题的话举手，登录不上的话跟我们说。Okay, maybe I should say that in English. Okay, you should use this, that's the QR code, but it's better if you're on your laptop because it's actually the tool, the website that you're going to go to. If you guys can't get to it, raise your hand and there's no login. You just go in, there's no login. You just have to hit the little accept button when the little snowman pops up. You should get a warning or something that says you have to accept. Just hit I accept. Don't worry, we're not selling your data.
Yeah.
Oh, and if it's spinning, is it spinning?
Yeah, it's spinning.
Live demos. Live demos are never fun.
So anyway, if you can see some spinning analyst figure that is successful. Okay, this is tutorial.ap-northeast-1.elasticbeanstalk.com. And you need to use Chrome browser to use this. I recommend to use Chrome browser.
Safari will not get you very far. It sucks.
Microsoft Edge works.
Oh, Edge is good.
Yeah, it's work too.
Mark, did you just say Microsoft product was good?
When I said it, no, I meant it's horrible that Safari doesn't work. But thank you for the clarification.
Everybody successful or not successful?
Is there anyone cannot?
It just takes a while, I guess. Everybody
Please
good?
raise your hand.
Anybody not good?
You did not.
Raise your hand. All right. I got people behind you helping out.
Yeah.
Anybody else not good? Oh, I should put my glasses on if I want to see.
Okay. So
Everybody good?
I will look
Okay.
at. This is the single most important step
Yes.
in this all-day tutorial. The most important slide.
Sorry.
Okay, I will move on. So I'm Chan from Korea. I'm a faculty in the University College of Medicine. Today I will teach you how to create core definitions by using analysts. Again, I believe this is the most important part of this tutorial, so you need to focus on, and I want to make all of you to get interest in creating cores in analysts and based on OHDSI and OHDSI. Today's agenda is I will say what the cohorts in OHDSI is, and then we will create together a cohort for new users of listen to both analysis, and it will create a chord for acute myocardial infarction in analysis. I'm sorry that I cannot use slideshows here because of the problem with the printer. So, we can describe the journey of the patients like this. The condition here means diagnosis, medical diagnosis. We call the conditions. And there are many conditions recorded in the EMR or claim data, which is mapped to the amoxicillin. And there are many time events for drugs, procedures, and measurements. We usually set the index date for the research. Either it can be characterization or patient level estimate, population level estimation, or patient level prediction. There is an index date, and we usually use this information from the baseline time before the index date to define the patients, and then during the follow-up time, we identify whether the certain outcomes of interest occurred in these patients or not. And there are many other different patients in here, but we usually use this information to define the cohorts or patients group. So the course, why the course is the most important in this tutorial? Because we use this course as a building blocks for research in OHDSI. So this is kind of the fundamental building blocks for the research in OHDSI, and we conduct every research based on this course. So when you want to do some clinical characterization, then we need to define the cohort to be characterized. Either it can be a treatment utilization cohort, or it can be a kind of a disease cohort. To calculate incidence summary, then we need to define the target cohorts and outcome cohorts. We do not, unlike the other conventional research, we do not make some certain outcome cohorts based on the target cohorts. The target comparator and outcome cohorts here are really independent. And I will show you how it works later. And for the population level effect estimation, we need to define target, comparator, and outcome cohorts. For patient level prediction, which is a machine learning project, we need to define target and outcome cohorts. And you can see that all these building blocks, here is a three parts: person, start date, and end date. So you need to remember that in the cohort, there are person, start date, and end date. So we usually call that as a phenotype in the informatics field. So in the informatics field, we think that phenotype is a specification of an observable observable potential change in status of the organism, and then it can be applied to patient characteristics inferred from EHRs or claim data. So this is kind of the terminology we are using now. And there are several approaches to phenotyping, such as rule-based phenotyping or probabilistic phenotyping based on the machine learning. But in this class, we'll focus on the rule-based phenotyping, which is kind of more conventional. Again, in OHDSI, we use diverse features as a Lego group, just like Lego bricks for phenotyping. So either it can be conditions, jobs, procedures, measurements, observations, or widgets. All of these are regarded as a Lego group, and all of them are treated in similar ways in the analysis. You will see later how you can use these Lego bricks to build your own cohorts, and it will be really fun. I will make it really fun to you.
Yes.
So what is cohort? There are many definitions of cohort, but it is really special definition in OHDSI. So the cohort's definition of cohort in here is somewhat different from cohort definition in epidemiology or other research field. So we define course is a set of persons who satisfy one or more inclusion criteria for duration of time. I want there is an inclusion criteria and there is a duration of time. So these two things are more really important concepts to define cohort. So again, there is a cohort era, a duration of the period during which a person has satisfied course inclusion criteria. So one person may belong to multiple courses. The single person can be included in the target or included in the comparator and included in the output course. You cannot understand this now, but you can understand it after this class. And one person may belong to the same cohort at multiple times, but with multiple different time periods. The person cannot belong to the cohorts in the same cohort multiple times without with the overlap time period. If the time period is different, then the person can be included in the cohorts multiple times. And one person may not belong to the same cohort multiple times. Again, this is a lot said. And one cohort may have 0 or more members. So this is how we this is the anatomy of a cohort definition in OHDSI. The most important thing is that entry events and exit. So again, in OHDSI cohort, there is an entry and exit. And how to define the entry and exit is the most important thing I believe. When we add more including criteria to specify the cohort. So there is an entry event which defines the index state of the cohort or the step state of the cohort. And there are many other, there can be many other inclusion criteria to specify the cohort definitions more. So you can ask me that why there isn't exclusion criteria. Because you will see later that if we just let the number of inclusion criteria as a 0, then it means exclusion criteria. So we do not say there is an exclusion criteria. All of them are just inclusion criteria, but technologically there is an exclusion criteria by using inclusion criteria. It's about confusing idea. And all of persons in OHDSI, there is an start of the observation period and the end of the observation period, which spans an observable period of the person. So we can use information during this observation period, usually before the cohort entry events, from the start of the observation period to the cohort entry event. Again, so before defining cohort, we need to ask which initial events you will need to define cohort, and which including criteria you will need to define initial events, and which exit criteria you need to define cohort. So what initial events? So again, we define the index state of the cohort or the start of the cohort using an event. So if there is no event, then we cannot define a cohort. So making sure that there is a kind of events to define the cohort. It can be a widget, like outpatient widget or inpatient widget, or just start of the normal to this database. But anyway, it has to be a certain event to be included and to be started in this cohort. And if you have any questions, please let me know anytime. So I believe that the defining the right entry event is more important in this course than others. So again, we need some kind of the actual event to define the initial event. And one the initial events. Okay, I'm sorry. So again, that we need to certain initial events to define course entry. We cannot define the course by excess of an observation. Sometimes we want to compare the patient with certain drugs and the patient without certain drugs. The patient without certain drugs doesn't have any events. So you cannot define the comparator in this study design. But you can define the comparator course by using some events such as visits, like outpatient visit or inpatient visit without that drug, or diagnosis of certain condition without that drug. So, but still, there should be a kind of the events, observable events. And when we, after defining the entry event, then we can add more inclusion criteria to specify the course more. We call this qualifying course. And it is defined as all persons who have an initial events and satisfy all qualifying inclusion criteria. You can see such many domains to use to define this inclusion criteria. You will see later. Again, you can specify all criteria as inclusion criteria to avoid confusion of fully loaded or inclusion versus exclusion. And you can use information on or before indexing. There is a temporal logic is somewhat different from the conventional research. I will show you how you can see the temporal logic in here and OHDSI APAC. And again, the interesting part of the OHDSI course is that there is an exit. You need to think about the exit of course. So, course exit can be defined as an end of the observation period or the fixed time interval relative to initial events or last event, sequence of related observations or censoring observations. I will show you later about the examples of this exit too. So you need to define that. Just remember that there is a court exit and you have to specify that. There is no way without specifying this court exit to define the court in OHDSI or analysis. And so, to define the court, there are several components, and we need to think about the domains, concept sets, domain-specific attributes, or the temporal logic relative to initial events. So concept sets is the most complex part or difficult part to define the courts. The definition of concept set is logical expression to represent a list of concepts in the OHDSI category encompassing a clinical entity of interest. So it's kind of a set of concepts. The concept is kind of a quotes, like I think with certain I-20 as a myocardial infarction or hypertension. It can be a concept set. And you can exclude certain concepts, or you can draw sentence of certain concepts, or you can use the map concepts for your non-certain concepts. So you can take thought as a standardized computer executable equivalent of a code list of using observational studies. So usually concept list is really kind of the important part in defining cohorts. It will be used for defining initial events and including criteria and exit strategy. And it can be evaluated through the core diagnostics, which will be shown in later afternoon. So this is the examples of study using OHDSI ecosystem, which was published in JAMA in 2020. And there is GitHub repo for this study. So this is the GitHub repository of this study, and you can see that all the history of how I built this package. On this code that how I added some functions to extract a mean and standard deviation of age, or how I add some introduction for revision, or how I add to certain additional results for revisions. Let me see how I revise the grades of the apply my curves from 130. You can see what I changed to revise this function. And there are issues that you can see that when I was trying to revise primary intake criteria, and you can see that I did it in this commit, and you can see how I did it too. And there is also in this package, there is a definition of cohort I used in this study. So I compared the users of Type-Boiler versus users of Clopidogrel, and this is the definition, computer readable definition of the cohorts. Let me see how it will show in the atlas. To copy this. This is just demoing. You don't need to follow me. Just see what I'm doing. You can load the images, and then you can see that the entry events. It was for cutaneous hernia intervention, the entry event. So it means that these cohorts start when the patients have underwent percutaneous hernia intervention for the first time of his or her history, and the patient have be older than 20. And these are the initial events or qualifying initial events to specify the course for. So the patients have to have the diagnosis of acute hernia syndrome before and between the 7 days before and 0 days after the index start date. So here the temporal logic is different with the conventional study. So I define the entry events, I define the index date, and you need to think the time based on this index date. So it means that the patients should be diagnosed with the acute hernia syndrome within a week before the before the PCI procedure. It doesn't make sense. So this is really important concept that you need to think about every time you add the including criteria. The index date is based on the initial entry events. So that's why defining the initial entry events is the most important part in defining cohort. And I added the mother criteria that the patients should start Type-Boiler within a week before the PCI procedure. There is another additional inclusion criteria here, because Clopidogrel was the competitor drug of this of Type-Boiler, so I excluded the patients who had exposure to the Clopidogrel. So even though it is inclusion criteria, you can see that the patients should have at most 0 events exposure to that Clopidogrel. So even though it is inclusion criteria, Actually, I excluded those who exposed to the clopidogrel during a month before the PCI procedure. Okay, here the index start date means the date of PCI procedure. And I also exclude those who are exposed to the clopidogrel by using the 0 events here. I also exclude those who had a history of ischemic stroke and intracranial hemorrhage. Here you can see that the temporal logic was that just all day before the PCI. Also, I exclude those who had a history of dry bleeding, gastrointestinal bleeding. Again, the cohorts have the entry events and the exit. You need to define exit too. So I define the exit of the course as an end of a continuous drug exposure. So in this case, the person has exited from the course when the patient stopped the medication. But I allow 7 days for a time gap. So you can see that if the patient stopped the drug, typo error, more than 7 days, then the patient will be exited from this cohort. And you can add more censoring events to make the person exit from the course. Is there any questions on this cohort definition? Okay, Nicole.
So, is that okay? So, Chan, sometimes I get confused with the condition of 0 days after, excluding, if an event happens between 7 and 0 days after. So, does the 0 days after include the day of, or not including the day of? So sometimes that logic is slightly confusing. So I wonder if you could help us try to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, so, it can be 1 day before the index date, or 0 day before the index date, or 0 day after the index date. I note that 0 day before or after does not differ. So it means that the patient can have ACS on the day of PCI. The patient on the same day, the patient can be diagnosed as the ACS and have an emergent PCI on the same day. But if I set this 1 day before, then the patients has to be diagnosed with ACS before the day of the PCI. So that's a difference. But again, there is no difference between 0 day before or 0 day after. Other comments or questions? Okay. Because I do not have enough time, I will move on. So we will try to treat cohort for new users of regional flow with prior hypertension in animals. And I will show you how you can do this. And you need to follow on this. So everyone is on this animals, right? And there is cohort definition tab on the left side. And in here, you can click the new cohorts button. Click the new cohorts. Follow.
If you have trouble, raise your hand.
Yeah. It may be a little faster, so please raise your hands and to let us know that you are in the trouble. And first of all, you will set the title. I recommend you to write your name on the first on the title to make it easier to find your own course.
Not only that, Atlas has this little quirk that if you name it the same thing, you don't like it. So put your initials, put your name at the beginning, so it's very unique to you.
Yeah, I do know that typing regional flow with prior repetition is somewhat difficult for some of you. You don't need to type all of this, just because you can type repetition. It's just a title. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So I'll move on. Again, the most important part is that defining entry events. What should be that entry events? I know I'm an Asian, so I know I'm familiar with silence, but please say anything. What should be the entry events in this case? So, yeah, one person answers. So there is a really fascinating button here. So it is really objective button. So you can just click this, and you need to select some of the domain from here. So I will start your era here, or I can start with the exposure here. So because I will start the regional flow as an entry event. I will start drop exposure. Yeah. And we need to define the drop of regional flow. I say that core concept is the most important, another important phrase in this in defining course. Let's see. Let's go to the concept. Now, from the definition tab, I'll move to the concept set tab. Okay, if you have any trouble, please let us know. And I will click new concept sets. New concept tab. New concept tab. Our title will be the regional flow. And I will add concepts here. Add concepts. I will search regional flow. Okay, this was the whole day tutorial, so it's kind of a faster for you. When I search regional flow in the concept tab, there is a regional flow for many concepts here. Usually, the blue means it's standard concept in our vocabulary, and the purple means it does not. So we prefer the standard concept here with many concept counts in the database. I will click this. I will take the regional break to the card.
So why he picked that one, if you see, because it's ingredient, right? It's the ingredient. Because many different countries, sometimes you may go down to the ingredient form strength, sometimes you may only go down to the ingredient form level, sometimes you have different brand names, like I'm sure you guys have your own manufacturers here, and different brands here. That's why he picked the ingredient, because this way when we go across the research, it catches all different drugs from all the different countries that might use it, right? And it says ingredient, but he also, the other way why he picked that one is the descendant record count is the highest. So that means everything at that ingredient plus anything below it, as form, strength, brand name, manufacturers, count, quantity, they all cover under the descendant record count. That's why he picked that one. He didn't randomly pick one for fun. Okay.
Yeah. And on the bottom of the site, you can see the Add to Concepts app. So after clicking this concept, I will click the Add to Concepts app. You need to focus on the next step. After adding this concept to the concept app, you need to click the core definition again, the red icon here. So after adding the concept to the concept that, you need to go back to the concept what you're defining. You need to return to the course of yours. And then, again, in the concept tab, you can see that regional flow is added to your concept set. Yeah. And I will include all the descendants of this regional flow ingredients. There are 3,000 concepts as a descendants concept of regional flow. There are many, you can see there many different drugs with regional flow now in our concept. I believe you are following now. And we will add new concept, hypertension. Hypertension. Again, I will go to search tab. And I will click the add concepts. And search hypertension. I will just click the essential hypertension. In the clinical scenarios, it's again defining the right concept set for the disease or the drug is really essential. But in this tutorial, I will ignore some of the details of the definition of the diagnosis. So I will just pick the random concepts, which is standard and with many peak persons or records in the database. I just randomly pick essential hypertension here. Okay, after clicking this, I will add this to the concept text. And then, what should I click now? What button? Which button? Yeah.
Pointer just said cohort definition. It's pointed.
Yeah.
They can't hear you. Or you can't hear them.
Yeah, so I will go back to concept definition here again. And then in the concept text, you can see the essential hypertension here. And I will also just add the descendants concepts of the essential hypertension. In the included concepts, we can see that which concepts are included. Essential hypertension here, and benign essential hypertension here. And you don't need to follow this step because it takes lots of time, but you can see the included source codes. So, as an IC10 code, there is IC10.
Chen, can we give 5 seconds? Everybody got to where he is already? Yes, no? Everybody good? Good?
Yeah.
If you're not good, raise your hand. Or you can make thumbs up. Yes.
That's really
okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's
Now you
really
keep going.
awkward that no one raises their hands. Either you are a genius or me.
That's because they're very fast. Okay? They're following you.
Yeah.
That means you're a great teacher.
No, we are Asians inside. We are a little bit fast progress. So there is an IC10 code that you can see that many I10 codes are included in this concept list. Or there is a K67 code, which is a Korean version of IC10, and you can validate that. Okay, then I will define the start, the entry events as a drug exposure of regional flow. And I need to add a specifier that patients have the hypertension. Before that, usually we define that the patients have the continuous observation before initiating this drug, because to exclude the potential of the possibility of the lab sensory. So just the patients should be enrolled in this database before the one year before starting this job, to make sure that the patients start this job, not the prevalent user. And we can add more attributes such as first exposure, which means the patients should start this drugs without prior exposures. And or we can add more ages such as later or equal to 18. This is random numbers. You can add and you can play this analyze app during the lunchtime too. So, and again, we will add inclusion criteria or restrict initial events. Fundamentally, these are identical, so you can choose either restrict initial events or new inclusion criteria, even though there is a delicate difference between them, but you don't need to know about this in this time. So I will use inclusion criteria.
When I do it, I prefer using new inclusion criteria only because when you actually get the results, you can see what you picked and what you've restricted. Okay, if you put it all at the top one, it doesn't. It just calculates it as one. Okay, versus if you put it in the new inclusion criteria, it can show you this is the people that started with this drug. Then, if I restrict it to the 18, these are how many people got taken out of my cohort, right? And so on and so on. So I like to put it in the bottom. I don't like to put it on the top. But that's just me because I'm a very logical person.
Yeah. So that's why I prefer inclusion criteria too. So I will add the criteria that the prior hypertension exists within 1 year before, based on the index date. The index date was the initiation of lisinopril. And in criteria to agree, and in here, I said that conditional occurrence means diagnosis. So I will pick the conditional occurrence here. Conditional occurrence. And about the among condition, I will pick the hypertension. Yeah. Because I want to specify that within a year, I will change this figures. So what should be now? The right numbers. 0, 0. Any other thoughts?
Big number.
Mm-hmm.
Big number.
Big numbers, yeah. What should be?
One.
1.
Because it's 1 year.
1 year. What?
That's a one day.
It's days. Okay, 365.
Yeah.
1, 2, 4.
Because the units of days, units of the date is days. So I will pick the 365 here before the index date. And what should be now? Yeah, I can hear you 0 days after the index date. Again, you need to specify your exit. The default value is the end of the continuous observation. So even though you don't, if you don't define the cohort exit, then as a default, it will be defined as an end of continuous observation, whether the patient died or the patient is no longer visited this hospital, or just exit from the claim data. But I prefer, in this case, to be defined as an end of continuous drug exposure. Which drug? Obviously, lisinopril. And I will allow some gaps between the drug exposures, such as 30 days. It's just, again, random numbers I can. And you will really save your precious course definition here to save. Okay, please save your course. Yeah, I can see some of you are already saved your course definitions here. Good job. And I hope that more and more courses I can see here, right? Like this. Keep it. raise your hands if you have any problems or if you have any questions. Do you have any questions until now? Yeah, let me.
She said, can you repeat your last step one more time? I can hear it from here.
Okay, the last part of to define court exit, right? Yeah, so I choose to define the exit criteria as an end of continuous drug exposure, and I select lesion flow as a drug of interest, and I define the persistent window which allows for time gaps as a 30 days.
It's really about when you want your patient, right? Patients go in and out of cohorts, right? So what we're trying to define here is when should this patient exit out of the cohort? And he's saying basically he wants to define it at the end of the time that the patient no longer uses this drug. But then how do you define when they no longer use this drug? Because you may take this drug every 30 days, right? And there could be a gap. So that therefore, if you don't take it for 60 days, then I consider that you've ended the drug. And that's why he has a gap of 30. So you can take it for 28 days or skip it for 28 days and you still be in it, right? But if you skip it for more than 30 days, then you're out of the cohort. That's what he's defining here, logically. Does that make sense to people? I see nods, good.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Please roll down here. The collapse gut site.
You mean
Is there the same as the persistence window?
yeah, but the course errors by using specifying error class, it's more difficult to speak in English. Patrick, could you help me?
Yeah, so there are different parameters in Atlas to let you choose how the data gets combined. The difference here for that exit criteria is that it's looking at all of the, it's using all of the prescriptions that you have, which includes the date of a prescription plus its day's supply, and it's concatenating all of those together into one period of exposure. The bottom cohort era period is now taking all of those records of continuous time and determining if any of them overlap with each other, and if they overlap, they smush together. In this particular case, based on the way that Chan defined it, there would not possibly be any overlaps because he's already concatenated the records together. But in other circumstances, depending on how you set your parameters, there may be reasons why you would want to combine them together. And that's just another way to allow you to do that.
I said that the patients can be included in a course multiple times. So when I define this as when I remove this first exposure term, and then if I use the all events per person, then every time the patients have the drug exposure, then the patient can be included. But again, there will be the exit. So I said that if the patients have the exit like this, if the patient take the lesion flow from here to here, and then later at the second outpatient visit, then the patient can have a drug from here to here. If so, the analysts make this two different events into one single event because we do not allow the overlap. But if the patient has these two events, then the patient can be included in the patient twice, double times. But if I extend the collapse days like 30 days, or 90 days, then it means that I will increase these 9 days. Now this is quite overlap, then the two events will be included in the one single event? That's a really good question. Thank you. So, I'm a task-oriented person, so I'll move on to the next agenda, the second agenda. I'll complete the agendas I have today.
Well, you have to ask them to run it. You're not gonna run it?
Yeah.
You didn't run it yet.
Yeah, that's really good. So, in the generation button, you can generate this course. So if you can, please click the button here. Because many of us are using the same database, it is slightly slow. During the time, I'll show the rest of the functions of Atlas. Like in the export tab, you can see how this course is defined in the SQL Server or Postgres, Oracle, Amazon Redshift, and Palo. Such as we support many different databases with different SQL grammars. And the JSON is the kind of the standard data format to define the code in the Atlas. Since it will take some time, I will show you what I've done before. So previously, it took 19 seconds to create this course in the actual database, and you can see that by using the original pool criteria, there is the I do have 100,000 patients by using the regional pool criteria, and about 76% of them has the hypertension within our year before initiating a regional pool. So again, I will try to move on to the next agenda to define acute myocardial infarction patient. So you need to click the next. You need to be on the port definition tabs again, and then you need to click the new port button here. The name is the acute myocardial infarction. Save it. Yep. Before defining port, we need to set the
Excuse me, everyone. So the previous cohort is still generate, so can we move to the next cohort?
Yeah, you can just let the computer works for you to create ports, and then you can later during the lunchtime you can see what happens in the actual database.
Hey Chan, I think we're at time, just so you know.
I know.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I know we're stopping you guys at lunch, so I want to make sure nobody in here, runs this over because of lunch.
Right. Yeah. Just give me 5 minutes. So again, and the concept sets, you need to move on to the concept sets to define the acute myocardial infarction concept set here. Click the add concepts. I searched myocardial infarction. I said that I prefer blue rather than purple. Yeah, thanks. So I'll click acute myocardial infarction here, and then I will add this to the concept tab. and I added acute myocardial infarction here, in the blue color. And I need to return the course I'm working on, and I can see that I have acute myocardial infarction here. All you need to do is add initial events as the condition occurrence of myocardial infarction. It can be, you can specify that it can be all events. Whenever the patients have the acute myocardial infarction, the patient will be included in this course. And I will define the court exit as a fixed duration relative to the initial event, which is acute myocardial infarction, as a 0 day. So whenever it means that whenever the patient have diagnosed with acute myocardial infarction, that the patient will be included in this cohort with the duration of 0 days. So the start date of cohort will be identical to the end date of the cohort, the date of the diagnosis of acute myocardial infarction. Save it, and we'll click the generate. The last thing I will tell you is that there are 2 homework if you can do during the lunch time. You need to please try to create angioedema events and try to define the hydroxychlorothiazide new users with prior reputation in ALS. This is a kind of homework during the lunchtime.
So he doesn't want you guys to go to lunch early, and he wants you to work during lunch.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's how we live in the ancient countries, So, yeah. So is there any comments or questions before lunch? Yeah, I love this silence. Okay.